It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, September 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is doing so much today, from rookie showcase to goalie talk and more.
The hockey's ramping up.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just want to throw in an extra plug in case you missed it on our Wednesday show this week. We had Lehigh Valley Phantoms head coach John Snowden on the show. And there was a lot of information in there about what Rick Tocchet's system is going to look like based on how he's going to be coaching the team. So if you're really into systems and specifics, this is a really good episode for you to listen to.
Yeah, I felt like, a lot of player development got explained that I don't think has really been explained lately. So I think it's really worthwhile watching because of that.
Yeah, I would concur. So take a watch of that on our YouTube channel or listen via audio. We will also, just as a heads up, be returning to our 5 days a week schedule next week as we are ramping up, as we said in the intro. So excited to bring you all of our good Flyers content 5 days a week, again, starting next week. And as part of that ramp up, Russ, you were at the NHL Rookie Showcase featuring Flyers prospect Carson Duarte. And what was your take on his feelings about being there and all of that?
Yeah, it was interesting. He definitely, he told me he's about 5 pounds heavier, stronger, whatever. You could see it. He's keeping the stereotype going for Chipotle. He was there just about every day when he was here. He stayed here for a certain amount of time in the area. And yeah, he just ate Chipotle, like he said, pretty much every day. And so like that's hockey standard at this point. Has not had a cheesesteak yet. Shocking. That was shocking to hear that, since he has spent so much time. But this is how focused hockey players get. They just, they do their thing. They go to the rink. They do this. They're real creatures of habit. So that's a hard one to break, apparently. And I won't give away too much, but Garnet Hathaway is really a good cook, like to the point where he's making stuff to order for this guy. And so not only is he a nice guy because he's letting him live with him, but like he's making him meals. Like that's tremendous. I might hire Garnet Hathaway as a personal chef based on what I heard. So after he's done playing, of course.
Yeah, I think Garnet Hathaway is a good mentor for him too, in terms of the kind of role that Carson could have with the Flyers.
Yeah, he understands everything away from the rink. He understands stuff at the rink. Does he get a little too carried away when he gets mad? Sure. But I think the other stuff, he's pretty level-headed. So I think that he is a good mentor. And yeah, Carson's, excited. He understands that there's opportunity for him, and there's no question there's opportunity. But we have to also understand he's not the typical college guy that you get that's like 25 years old. He's not. He's much younger than that. So there still could be AHL time ahead for him.
Yeah, I think so. As far as the just general goings on, like what was your take on it in terms of like who was there, and were there any other standouts at the showcase?
Yeah, there were a lot of standouts. I mean, there were a bunch of the NTDP guys, formers were there, Zeev Buium, Jimmy Snuggerud, Gabe Perreault, Ryan Leonard. They were all there. They were all tight. They were all making fun of each other. Zeev Buium was talking, and Ryan Leonard was just making faces at him. And then at one point, he yelled out like he was part of the media, "Okay, let's move on." When he was talking, it was pretty funny. That kind of stuff's great. Matthew Shaper walked in with meta glasses on, or some sort of recording glasses, was kind of fooling around with that. Didn't know that he could record audio. So then he started interviewing some of the prospects, which is funny. So maybe we'll see that somewhere, somehow, someday. that was fun. But he's a really down to earth kid. Like he's talking to kids like when he's signing autographs saying, "Hey, listen, this could be you. I was just like you. I'm not anything special." Like that. Sometimes people say that and they just say it, and then after a while it kind of wears off. Not with this guy. He's really that guy. And so that part of him makes him pretty special. He wore number 48. That's the number he's wearing now because his other number wasn't available, and he wore it because everybody in his house was a huge Danny Briere fan, and so was he.
Love that.
And so that's an interesting thing that I don't think I learned at the draft. I don't remember that. Maybe because 48 wasn't in play then, right? So that was something like kind of like, oh, that's interesting. So that was fun to learn. The Mammoth jersey looks tremendous and
in person,
and Tisha Ginla, probably so much stronger than he was in his draft year, really filled it out. Like it just looked great. I was very impressed with the way the logo looked. It's not like the colors changed or anything, but the way the logo looks, it really does pop when it's on somebody. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you hate jerseys when you see them flat, but then on they look better.
Yeah, or vice versa, right? I've seen that before. That's why I always go to the NHL store when new jerseys come out, so I look at it in person before I decide if I want to buy it.
Yeah, it's important. I really do believe in that. So that was interesting. Again, a lot of guys actually had NHL experience, which is unusual for this event, and playoff experience. Like that's really a rarity when you get players that are there like Snuggerud and Leonard that actually had playoff experience too, but were at the shoot. So, and it's because, and it's, they let those guys break packs, and Leonard pulled his own card, but why would they still have him there? For the event worn stuff and for autographs, because that's something where he just got rushed into a set, but none of that other stuff exists. And then you get an updated photo too. So, that's
especially with him being a Caps prospect and it's in DC.
And it's in DC, so that's a good thing. And he had the biggest crowd because it's a DC crowd. So yeah, so that's fun. So yeah, there's all of that too. And so it really went well. There was some, there were a fair amount of Russians there. Chernisov was there, Nishkin was there. So that's always fun to kind of see those guys. So yeah, I mean, some great interviews. I have a lot up on Instagram. I've got some other things up on Twitter. Zane Parekh wore a fake mustache. Matthew Schaefer interviewed him with a fake Fu Manchu. I have that video, but I didn't video Schaefer with the Fu Manchu because I just didn't catch that. But I put up the Parekh picture right away, and people had all kinds of comments for that. And my question to him was, does he feel more confident in the offensive zone with that mustache? And he goes, I think so. I think it'll add more points. He said something to that degree. He really played along with it, and then it fell off. It was really funny. And I went to the upper deck person and said, see, you need better glue. She goes, yeah, it lasted at least a little while.
Yeah, good enough for the picture, I guess.
Yes.
So before we head to our mailbag with your questions this week, as well as we're going to wrap up this week's poll question about the Flyers goalie rotation later in the show, just a couple of other NHL news items that, of course, will affect the Flyers. The NHL schedule for 2026-27 is going to start earlier. The first games will be in late September. And we had an inkling this was going to happen because, first off, they're going to switch to 84 games down the road and make it so there's fewer preseason games and more regular season games. And so I really think the timing is going to be very similar in terms of if you added preseason and regular season together, but there's just going to be more regular season. So that'll move those up just a slight bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the world kind of works with that, in the sense that, like, I go to the Fall Classic, it's around the same time every year, and it kind of ends on the 21st, but if that season starts on the 20th, like, could I miss the Flyers opener? Sure. Yeah, I could, which I've never been in danger of missing in the last 20 years. So, but I wonder if they'll change.
Be like between the 25th and 28th is when it's going to start.
If that's the case, then it'll be fine, because most of those other kinds of tournaments are usually over then. Because otherwise, like some of the team personnel wouldn't be there either. They'd be at this thing, then they'd be going back and forth. That would make more sense to me. Otherwise, I think it's fine. I also want to point out the players are pretty schooled at the showcase, so they knew that this AHL 19-year-old thing is not happening this year. They know it's for next year. I know there was all this hysteria on Twitter that it might happen and Jet Luchenko might. No, it's not happening.
No, they have to have at least a year to put the rule in place and implement it and set that expectation.
And the CHL did not want to do it this year. Like I was told that.
No, and they just had like negotiations with the NHL.
Correct.
Like you have to do this a year out, like to plan it.
But there was hysteria, Rachel. Like online, there were all these articles. I know.
No need for that. There's also going to be a playoff salary cap. I know we're hoping this affects the Flyers in some way here, but because that's part of the memorandum of understanding with this CBA extension, there's going to be a requirement to list 18 skaters, 2 goalies for each playoff game, and create like an average club salary for the playoffs, and that's going to affect that LTIR loophole and all of that. So
so guys, now
get ready, Vegas.
No, but Florida too, right? With Tkachuk. Now Tkachuk will be back earlier this season, no matter what. He was going to anyhow because of the Olympics. But that's the thing. Now all it's going to do is just limit the LTIR time and whatever. I mean, teams are still going to do stuff.
Yeah. All right. We are going to get to your mailbag questions coming up next.
The NFL season's here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. I would go with the Baltimore Ravens. You get some pretty good Super Bowl odds for them. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, like I said, we are back to 5 days a week next week because hockey season is around the corner here. Yep. Plus, it'll be Monday, so we will have our nemesis of the week, and we are going to have another poll question next week. Probably 2 more weeks of weekly poll questions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Leading up to the season, so stay tuned for that as well. As far as our mailbag goes here, there were some good comments and questions around the John Snowden appearance on our show Wednesday. Nine Finger commented, he was our coach out here with the Growlers in the ECHL. He has his stuff together, we'll say.
He does.
A great hire. And could not agree more.
We talked about it when they were talking about coaches, like we liked him.
Yeah. Curious Boomer commented, great content. Snowden is impressive, transparent, competent, intelligent, knowledgeable, goal-oriented. I expect more success at Lehigh Valley this season. And I think he expects more from the team.
That's the difference. He expects more, and it's going to rub off for sure.
I think so. And I think he really understands the balance. And that's part of like what we were getting at with him with our questions, was balancing this prospect development that is required of him with actually implementing a system that could lead to some wins. And I think that he's bought into the Talkit system, and he thinks he can implement it to win some games in Lehigh Valley. And we'll see how it turns out, but I absolutely see that potential there as well.
You could see he's workshopped a lot of this already.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Paul has a question about that he commented. On the surface, it sounds great that the Flyers and Phantoms are using the same system, but the reality is NHL coaches get fired much too quickly for that format. When teams are looking for a new head coach, the new coach is going to implement his style regardless of what is going on in the AHL. Blappy was here through many coaches. What am I missing?
Okay, so a couple things. First, add Reading, because they're in that now too. They never were for the last few years, with Lappy included. So that's was part of the problem with Ian. If you noticed, Ian's now back to being a pro scout
with the Islanders.
With the Flyers. So even though the Flyers were being good, look, he kind of reached his point in the organization. there's a point where I think, he was effective, and all of a sudden he's not as effective, and then you saw, and just making the playoffs isn't a good enough thing for this organization, because players have to truly develop. And so I think it goes down to having to be more communicative, but in a clear way. I think it's also, remember, other coaches were saying they had a clear lack of a system. The Flyers, that's the Phantoms rather. That was a knock early in the season last year for the AHL. So there was that, and I think it's what you're saying isn't entirely true. It'd be like saying in the NFL, why does everybody run the West Coast offense? It gets coaches fired. Well, everybody does run the West Coast. You have to do a good job with it. Every NHL team does this. You have to do a good job with it. That's my answer. And so that's why the ones who don't get fired. But it's not the format that gets them fired. It's them.
Yeah, it's not the continuity. It's the execution.
Right.
Yeah, I think the continuity is going to help the Flyers a lot in terms of having guys ready for call-ups. I think there was always this, there's always going to be an adjustment period when call-ups happen, but this is going to shorten it. I think
it will definitely shorten it. John talked about it. Andre was the perfect example of how it took time.
I was gonna mention him specifically because it took too long for him to adjust to the Flyers game, and then by then Torts was like, "Well, he's useless," right?
Right.
So it affected Andre's development and Andre's ability to really be effective. And I think Ole Lixell suffered from it.
He definitely suffered from it, because I feel like if Snowden were his coach and you dial it back a year, things would have changed for him.
Things would have been different. Yeah, I firmly believe that. I mean, again, not a big deal.
It doesn't mean he would be a long-time Flyer. It just means it would have been better for him.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree there. We got an email from Chuck asking, we've heard that a number of players need to work on skills or improve to make the team. Are the players addressing these before camp? And if so, how? And Chuck mentioned Zegras with faceoffs, Tippett with his shot, skating speed, and defensive skills across the board.
I mean, players certainly work with coaches, instructors, other things over the summer. Do they work on absolutely everything that they're not good at? Not all the time, because a lot of times they're doing some fun stuff too. Face-offs is kind of hard to work on unless you're in a camp and you can face off against somebody. And so the Flyers will definitely work on that with him and see, is that going to get him from like 40 to 50%? Probably not. Like, that's something where he can maybe get it to like 43%. But I haven't spoken to a single person that feels like he's going to improve enough on faceoffs to be like a 1C. And even as a 2C, you're going to have somebody on the line with them that could take faceoffs. So that's just the way it is. As far as other players, I'd like to be able to tell you that Owen Tippett has seen a shooting coach, and this year he's going to hit the net 20% more.
That's the dream, right?
That's the dream. That has not occurred. That has not happened. I can't tell you it's going to happen. And so, that's just hockey. Unfortunately, unless, the organization kind of, I don't want to say forces him to do it, but makes it something like that he can't ignore in camp and work with this person, it's just going to happen partially, and then they hope for the best, honestly.
Right. And I think with Rick Tocchet and his system, and we talked about that on the show over the last couple of weeks, and there's an attitude there of let the guys be themselves in a way, balanced with this specific kind of defensive structure. And I think that on the offensive side of things, it's very clear that he wants Michkov to be Michkov, that he wants Owen Tippett to be Owen Tippett and do what they do best.
Michkov, let him be Michkov.
Yeah.
Tippett, he needs instruction. He does.
I mean, he does need instruction. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying in terms of utilizing the things that they are good at, I think that Tocchet will do that slightly better than John Tortorella did, because I think John Tortorella was too locked down in his way and his system, but Tocchet wants to flavor his system with the upsides to these guys in a little bit better way. And I think they'll benefit from that. I think more guys will benefit from it in the long run. Again, to be determined. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah,
But
John became definitely too mono-focused on
yeah,
playing great defense and playing hard on offense, and so someone like Tyson Forster really learned how to play defense, but they haven't fixed his feet. Like, a lot of times when he goes and gets the
yeah.
puck, he has to kind of fix his feet before he shoots it. If he had his feet better positioned when he gets the puck, the shot would go off quicker and he'd get more goals. Maybe that happens this year. I'll be looking for that.
Right, and that's where some of this off-season work, and I think the fact that Tocchet was hired quickly was a good thing because they could have those initial conversations and then say,
Yeah,
"Okay, go have your summer," right?
right, right.
So I think
Go eat
that
Chipotle
will
every day.
right, exactly. But I think the answer to Chuck's question here, to kind of bring it around, is we'll see, because there's no way to know the answer to it
No,
until we
even
see it in
preseason
game.
is only gonna
Yeah,
give you just a cursory glance at it.
yeah, yeah. Now we are going to talk about the poll results of the goaltending question next, but there's kind of a general question we got from Light the Lamp here on that, which is related to our conversation we had with John Snowden, where Russ, you asked specifically about shot blocking. So, like the
Right.
Lamp asked, do either of you think the shot blocking had a negative effect on the goalies last season? I think it would be distracting for goalies that aren't used to it to stay in a rhythm. Wonder how most goalies would feel about it.
I've spoken to quite a few goalies, and goalies don't mind block shots. They mind block shots when they're in their field of vision. Like, goalies, it's one of the hardest position in sports because they have to be positioned even if they don't see the puck and hope it hits them. Because sometimes you'll see the goalie doesn't even know the puck's at him. He just kind of senses that it's coming, and he's in the right position, so it hits him, and then he can react, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, you take that away from a goalie sometimes when you drop down too early to block a shot. And so that's the yin and yang of it.
Right. And I think, even at a basic level, obviously, I'm nowhere near an elite level hockey player, but as a defender, when I played, I think, I've definitely made mistakes with trying to block shots and get in the way, and I got in the field of vision of the goalie, and that's something like you
Yes.
learn, and it's about communication,
Right.
right? And it's about talking to that goalie and that goalie coach and saying, how do we optimize this to block the
Right.
shots we need to, but get out of their way so that they can see and make that glove save, or deflect the puck away with their blocker, or whatever they need
Right.
to
And we
do to
talked
make
about
it
the
work.
answer, stick disruption first
Yep.
helps you to not have to block a shot because then the shot doesn't happen.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. Or push the guy out of the
Yeah.
way first so they don't get the shot off
Right.
in the first place,
Right.
right?
Either
So
way.
it's about using those elements first, and then resorting to blocking shots
Right.
as a last resort, I
Yeah.
think, before you get to the goaltender there. But yeah, very good question for
It
sure. We
was.
did ask about the goalie rotation for the Flyers given the quagmire that is happening. Very excited to get to your poll results on that coming up next. So our poll question was, what will the Philadelphia Flyers goaltending rotation look like by the end of this upcoming NHL season? Let us know why you picked the option you did, or your something entirely different option, in the comments. And I think, the top vote getter to me was the expected one, but I think the margin was a little bit different
Hmm.
than I expected, just because the upheaval in Flyers goaltending is so great that
It
literally
is.
anything can happen. But Urson and Vladar only was the top vote getter and got more than half, which is very unusual for our
For
polls, I
anything.
would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 52% of the votes went to Urson, and Vladar only would be the rotation at the end of the season.
I get it, but it's just not possible when you have these other guys and you want to sort of at least give them some playing time. I mean, you are paying them. One, you're paying handsomely that he's not even, Fedotov may not even get 7 or 8 NHL games this year. But
Right.
he's
We talked
making,
about that on Monday.
yeah, and he's making more than 99% of the backups in the league.
Yeah. That, I mean, at least the contract is up after this
Right.
year, and we can figure out what to do. Yeah, there were some good comments about that. Kenneth commented, I think Urson and Vladar will at least be decent. If Fedotov and Kolosov are serious about being in the NHL, they need to report to the Phantoms and work very hard.
Well, they're not both going to report there at once because Bjarnason wants to get time too. The Flyers have too many goalies. Like, they just have too many goalies that are at this level. They don't have enough that are
In
not
the
here yet.
system.
And that's the imbalance, unfortunately.
I know it's so difficult because you're like, we have too many goalies, but we didn't draft any, but we should have. And like it sounds like it should be incongruous, but it makes total sense.
It does.
We need goalies in the pipeline that are not necessarily here yet. But Matthew commented here, I would like to see Urson around 45-ish quality starts and remain healthy for the entire season. He hasn't proven he can carry the load for long stretches without muscle injuries. And that's a fair point.
Yeah. I mean, and it could be something that plagues him his entire career. Like, that happens with some goalies. And if it does, then it is all about the managing. And then honestly, he's more probably apt to be like a 35 start guy for somewhere else, simply because he shouldn't have the number one pressure on him, knowing that this is going to happen year after year after year. And that might help him, but we'll see. Maybe he'll overcome it.
Right. And NetCentric commented, not concerned at all about Urson or Vladar. Play well in front of them and let's move on. And that's fair too. Like, the team has to play well in front of them.
We'll see. Let's check back with that. Let's check back with
well,
that.
That's what we just talked about in the 25%, last segment, right?
When 25% of the season has gone, please message us again and let us know how you feel.
We did get an interesting comment from Flyer 10624 saying a tandem of Vladar as the number 1 and Urson as the number 2 would be best for the team in the long run. Vladar at 28 is closer to 900 season. I think Urson would benefit from a few more seasons of development as a number 2, and they have too many talented young skaters fighting for a roster spot to tie one up with a third goalie.
I mean, it's not impossible what you're saying, and that possibility exists. I mean, Vladar couldn't hold off Dustin Wolf, though. So here, we'll see if he's able to hold off, Sam Urson.
I mean, Urson is not Dustin Wolf.
No, but he is the incumbent, though.
True.
And so when you are the new guy coming in, and Urson we already know the organization likes him. Sure, it's not Dustin Wolf, but you're fighting an uphill battle. Like, Vladar is fighting an uphill battle a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap that up, Robert commented, I picked both goaltenders going into the season to finish it. I believe both are capable, so preventing injuries, expect the two to finish together. And so it wasn't necessarily which is 1 or which is 2.
But most likely he's right. Most likely that is what's going to happen. What the results will be of that, we'll find out.
Right. So going back to the poll results, Urson, Vladar, and Fedotov got 24% of the vote, and Urson, Vladar, and Kolosov got 10% of the vote. And I can't disagree.
I think people are ticked off about Kolosov, and I get it. He's done nothing to ingratiate himself with the fan base, so that's it shows up in the poll.
Right. And Ryan commented the Russians aren't ready, which
that's probably true.
Yep.
We're finding that out.
Yeah. Archangel commented, contract years, Fedotov will be 29 by the end of the season. Trade what you can at the deadline. I'm not committing long-term to either of them.
Most likely the Flyers aren't committing to any of them.
Yeah.
But they might commit to Sam as a backup just so they have somebody. They're in a spot. Like, Bjarnason's not playing in the NHL next year. So they're still in a spot.
Yeah. Now, Muscles Marinara commented, the Fedotov slander is egregious. Olympic silver medalist, KHL goaltender of the year, played on a bad NHL team that couldn't average more than 2.5 goals a game and failed to clear their own zone. Maybe put a real team in front of him before we make any real judgments. I've seen enough of Kolosov, though, and send him packing.
Okay. So as far as Fedotov, I mean, I've seen some things that are good. I've seen some things that are bad. I said before he came that I felt like he wasn't the same goalie after the whole Russian front situation.
Oh, totally. Totally.
It hurt his development. It did. It doesn't matter what his age is. All goalies break at a certain time, and I felt like that hurt his development. So we'll see. Maybe he'll look better this year. Now, as far as being in front of a better team, whatever, hey, a lot of goalies could benefit from that, but he may not get that opportunity. So he's got to play his best hockey for this team with those guys in front of him. It's up to him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, interestingly, in the results, some other option got 14%, which was higher than the Ursin, Vladar, and Kolosov. So that was intriguing to me here, just because that would imply a trade of some sorts. Because there's no other options, because Bjarnason's not getting NHL games.
No, I mean, could they make a trade at the deadline for a guy with some term? Sure. If they overpay to get a goalie with some term, that could happen. So that may be what this poll is talking about, those people, and that is a possibility.
Yeah, I think so. But this is one of the biggest questions coming into this Flyers season. And, we can talk about Trevor Zegras all we want, and is he a 1C all we want. But if the goaltending isn't there,
right,
it doesn't matter.
It derails everything. No,
it does. It does. So this is going to be for sure one of the biggest questions and things we're going to be watching heading into the season. As we head to 5 days a week, next week we will be back on Monday. We're going to do our mailbag as regularly scheduled on our Wednesday show. So if you want your question answered, let us know via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.